Welcome everybody to Go Local Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I want to thank Juan Wilson for joining us earlier to talk about Yes PVD coming up at the end of the month, an effort to engage young people into lots of career opportunities. We'll have all the links and all the ways that you can connect. Also want to thank former Director of Health, Michael Fine, for joining us as always and breaking down the numbers as to what's going on in the virus around Rhode Island. The numbers have been very, very, very steady for about the last week to 10 days. A disappointing number because the hope was that those numbers would come down in time for schools to reopen. I'd like to jump over to the head of the middle school at Providence Country Day, Jennifer Caletri. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Josh. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me today.
Okay, you're the head of the middle school. First and foremost, I think that gets you past St. Peter all the time, twice on Sunday. But now you add in the complexity of what's going on in education. You're heading up the middle school at PCD. Give us an overview of the challenges in this environment as you're starting to try and build the educational structure for this year.
Right. Well, Josh, that's on everybody's mind right now. In every new school year comes with a new year, new teachers, new expectations, a new routine, and parents are trying to figure out, how will my child adjust to this? What do I need to do to prepare my child for all of these new things? And, COVID aside, there are just new things that come with every new school year. And, it's good to think about those things ahead of time so that you're ready and your child is ready.
So let's talk about sort of summer preparation. If they've gotten, my kids are older, but I remember the era pretty well. Summer reading, it's really an incredibly important aspect of developing their brains and keeping them engaged over the course of the summer. What can parents do, even in the final 2-3 weeks, to sort of spark that educational, intellectual development as they head back to school?
Sure, great question. So it's really important if schools have assigned summer reading or summer work, it's really important for parents to monitor that and make sure that it's completed for the start of the school year. These assignments, they not only serve as great ways to bridge skills between June and September, they're often great starting points for classes in the new year. And if they've completed the work, if they've really sort of absorbed what they've read and what they've done, they'll be able to participate and focus and join those conversations right at the start of the year. They'll really be prepared for those. If a school has not assigned any work over the summer, it's really important to keep those kids reading. Parents, really help them select something that they will enjoy. When kids have a choice in what they read, they'll be much more engaged and much more focused. And that will really be key for building solid reading comprehension skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't think of anything more important in sort of jump-starting one's education than those students who love to read. I mean, it really drives so much of their intellectual development and their passion about learning throughout the rest of their life. And that's something that, almost regardless of where you live or what your economic situation is, that's something that can be sparked at really in any household across Rhode Island. Let's talk a little bit about middle schoolers, even high schoolers, even college. Everybody's been having this unique summer and maybe not going to bed at exactly the key time or getting up at exactly the right time. Let's talk about sort of resetting the human clock to get ready for school.
Yes, as we know, it's August. Our kids are in summer vacation mode. They're going to bed later. They're sleeping later in the morning. And it's really important for, parents to really encourage kids to start going to bed a little bit earlier and get ready, as September nears for those back to school bedtime routines. We ask a lot of our kids during the day. Schools are, they they have their kids working and active. So it's really important that they come to school well rested, and having a good night's sleep. For example, middle schoolers, it's recommended that they have 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep per night. So starting those new bedtime routines now will be much easier when we get to September and they have to get up that much earlier.
And literally, it's not even a joke, they grow at night. I mean, that's literally when their bodies develop.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about do you have to lose or change the Netflix password? I mean, what do parents need to do? Because, the clock is on the proverbial field. We're about 3 weeks away from schools restarting.
Right.
And you know, you're talking about if they need 9.5 hours sleep and you need them up at 7, that's a much earlier time frame than probably most of them are dealing with right now.
Right, right. And it's a great idea to start in those small increments. Start by, 10 minutes earlier, for a few days. So it doesn't seem like they're going to bed, that much earlier. Um, One of the things that really is helpful to most kids, if they're going to bed a little bit earlier and they're not ready to go to sleep, that's a great time to encourage the reading. They're starting to settle down, they're starting to, focus a little bit more on one thing. Taking the screens out of the rooms is probably a really great idea. That will help them, start to get to sleep. But just start in small increments. That way it won't feel like you're going to bed so much earlier. And then over time, you're getting closer to that back to school bedtime.
Well, they're getting up at 10 or 11 o'clock. Should you start waking them up a little bit earlier as well to try and adjust that clock?
Yes.
spoken
Getting
like spoken like the head of a middle school.
yes, and I'm also a parent, so I'm encouraging this with my own children. It's a good idea to start getting out of bed early a little bit, starting that morning routine, because you don't want to be rushed in the morning. You want to make sure that you're ready to go, you're ready to start your day, and even as you get a little bit closer, to the start of school, one thing you might want to think about, a great idea for parents, is having your student pack all of their belongings the night before. You know, have students pack up their books, their materials, anything they might need for sports or equipment. Get that ready the night before, because that will make the morning routine out the door so much quicker and so much smoother. And when you're thinking about it and planning the night before, you'll be less likely to forget something.
I used to coach high school lacrosse. My son at the time, he's now out of college, was very, very young. He was about 5 years old. He insisted on coming to the early morning lacrosse practices at 5:30. And I said, here's the deal. You have to be dressed for practice that night before. So he would wear his sweats to bed at age 5 or 6 so he could get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and come to lacrosse practice. So I don't know if that works for middle schoolers, but it is a strategy. Let's talk about, we're in the most complex time of most of our lives, right?
Right.
We've got a global pandemic. We're having a very different discussion about race. It's a presidential election year, very contentious. The country's split on almost every issue. These discussions about current events, is this a discussion you should be having as a parent with your middle schoolers?
Yes, absolutely. Schools will likely be addressing these issues, in one way or another when school begins again. It's really important that parents talk with their children about, a pandemic or issues related to social justice in the media right now. And as parents, we have to help our kids navigate what they're seeing and hearing in the media. We have to help them process that. We have to help them, you know, find what's truth from what's not true, um, and have that conversation with your child at the level that is comfortable for them. Those conversations can happen on all different levels. But if they go into school having some context about these issues, they will be much more likely to engage and participate in those discussions when they have an idea of what's going on around them.
Let's talk a little bit about the flexibility, the lack of stability. Most years you go into to school, and you know who your teacher's going to be or who your teachers are going to be, depending on the structure of your school. You know where you're physically going to be. You know who's in your homeroom class. You know, sort of all of those things the first day of school, and they're pretty consistent throughout the school year. It gives you a sense of place and being as a 7th grader or an 8th grader. This
Right.
year, all of those things may be true, and none of those things may be true, or they may change over the course of time one way or another. How do you get your child ready to adjust and be flexible?
Right, right. I think right now schools are sending out a lot of information. Schools that have their plans ready to go, they're communicating with families and trying to get that information about protocols and new routines across early. So talk to your children about that. Give them, have a discussion about what that may look like. But also give your child time to acclimate. With younger students, these routines are not built overnight. They really need to get there and to see it. Um, and that takes time. So give it a few weeks. Let them know that if they don't have everything down the first couple of days, that's okay. These kinds of things take time. And then, really, your teachers and your school administrators, these are your best resources. Reach out to them, ask questions. When everybody's on the same page and partnering, you're going to have the best outcome for success.
Jennifer, the things you talked about, getting them to bed early, getting organized for the school day,
Yeah.
that's true whether or not you return to the school and in classroom, or whether or not you're going to be home at the beginning of the school year.
Absolutely. Some kids right now, they're preparing for, uh, an in-person, some are preparing for remote, some are hybrid. Whatever the case, there will have to be some preparation. There'll be homework assignments that need to be complete the night before. And, in any scenario, there will be a weekly schedule. Having a calendar somewhere central in the household, maybe the kitchen, is a great place to write dates and have everybody, have some sort of visual for what's going on in that week so kids can see. Visual is great for kids because they're able to plan that way by seeing what's coming up.
You get the last word. What's your advice to parents right now here? We're just in the 3rd week of August. What should they be focused on to have a successful school year?
Yes, it's really difficult right now. Right now, if you're a parent, because you're not sure exactly what the scenario, how the school year is going to play out. But I would encourage parents, reach out to your teachers, reach out to your school administrators. They really will be your best resources. I think they will be able to provide a lot of information, but also they're there to help and listen to your concerns. So reach out to them when you have questions. You know, they want success for your child just as much as you do. So when you're partnering and working together, you're going to have a great chance for that success.
Jennifer, thank you so much. Jennifer's the head of middle school at Providence Country Day. Look for a write-up on this tomorrow online with all the connections, links, etc., to be able to get more information from folks at PCD and other educational information. We should be hearing more from the governor over the next week or so as to what the plans are for public schools, but obviously this is a complex and ever-changing period of time in education. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks so much for having me today.
Everybody, please stay safe and please wear your mask. Thanks so much.